Let's get into the news portion. It's been no difference, and there's certainly been no let up in the news, and it's kind of difficult of which ones to pick out. And there's a couple of themes in this week's news and views from around the world, but this is a piece today, a letter by Scott Pruitt, who has resigned today. I think we'll find out the real reasons why later on. He wrote a letter to Mr. Trump, said, "It's been an honour to serve you in the Cabinet as Administrator of the EPA. Truly your confidence in me has blessed me personally and enabled me to advance my agenda beyond what anyone anticipated at the beginning of your administration. Your courage, steadfastness and resolute commitment to get results for the American people, both with regard to improved environmental outcomes as well as historical regulatory reform, is in fact occurring at unprecedented pace, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve you and the American people in helping to achieve those ends." Which is why he found it hard to advise Mr. Trump that he's stepping down effective as the administrator of the EPA effective tomorrow. So that's another politician that's gone. He's not the last. We're all waiting for the bigger ones, or the bigger names, shall we say. Well, this was held over from last week, but it's kind of a worrying concern, and I hope the people of France tell government to stick it, quite frankly. But they're planning on introducing a plan to bring back national service for all 16-year-olds. And it was an idea put forward by Emmanuel Macron in his presidential campaign to promote a sense of civic duty and national unity amongst French youth. Perhaps if the politicians promoted the sense of civic duty and national unity, it may set an example. But many people, and hopefully all of them, remain unconvinced of the benefits of the programme. And the new national service will cover all 16-year-olds, girls as well as boys, and will be divided into two distinct phases. And the first phase is a mandatory 1-month placement with a focus on civic culture, which the government says will enable young people to create new relationships and develop their role in society. I thought that's what school was about. Oh well. Voluntary teaching and working with charities, no, there won't be any left, are among the options being looked at alongside traditional military preparation with the police, really, fire service or the army. The second phase is a voluntary placement of at least 3 months and up to a year, in which young people can be encouraged to serve in an area linked to defence and security. But again, they could opt out to carry out volunteer work linked to heritage, the environment or social care. They're coming up with this because in all countries now, particularly the Western countries, the number of people signing up for the military is plunging rapidly. I think too many who have been in it and have come back and have warned of the dangers. Others, like our shows and the many others in the alternative media, warning is the military and not fighting for our benefit. We never were. And we'll find out more on that later. A new venture this time has been established by partners in crime, Amazon.com, Berkshire Hathaway Inc. and JP Morgan Chase will take aim at intermediaries in the healthcare system as part of a broad effort to reduce wasteful spending. And the venture's newly named chief executive officer said the still unnamed business will initially seek to develop ways to improve care for the more than 1 million individuals who get health insurance from the 3 above firms. Really? Over time, the venture will make those innovations available freely to other companies, meaning that if it's successful, its effects could be felt more broadly among the more than 150 million people in the US who get their health insurance through work. So now 150 million can get health insurance through work when there's only 93 million working. Kind of odd, that one. There you go. And that's according to the official statistics. National US Debt Database, it's on there. Of course, last week we had the shooting in Baltimore and the newspaper. I did expect some sort of narrative would have come out about this now, which probably means that it was real. It was probably someone with a grievance, because I think if it was staged like previous things, they would have spun it against Trump or government policy, anti-gun crew. I was surprised David Hogg didn't wheel back out again. Anyway, investigators said the guy had a long-standing grievance with the newspaper. I think we all have now. He had sued the Gazette for defamation over a 2011 column that reported on his guilty plea to criminal harassment of a former high school classmate on Facebook. Really? He lost that lawsuit in 2013, and in the harassment case he was reportedly spared jail time in order to get therapy. Police said on Friday the defendant had made threatening comments online in May 2013 against the Gazette, but the newspaper declined to pursue charges, not wishing to exacerbate the situation, according to investigators. And the woman who said she was stalked by him told Baltimore's WBAL she had warned a former police official years ago that the suspect will be your next mass shooter. He is a complete nutjob, and the accused became fixated with her for no apparent reason and caused her to move 3 times, change her name, and sleep with a gun. Some people just can't take no for an answer. Sad. Exodus out of the UK. Apparently there's been a surge in UK citizens acquiring the nationality of another EU country since the Brexit referendum. There'll still be another one shortly, and they'll probably put it back, which will cause mayhem. According to data obtained by the BBC this week, in 2017 a total of 13,000 UK citizens obtained the nationality of one of the 17 member states from which the BBC has received figures. That's the EU states, not the United States, although it is one and the same. So there was 13,000 last year, and this compares with 5,025 in 2016 and only 1,800 in 2015. Now, the most frequent new nationality, which is kind of surprising, was German, which saw a huge jump from just 594 cases in 2015 up to 7,493 in 2017. The Brits who passed comments on it said they would like to remain part of the EU, but just not part of Britain, which is now out of the EU. But in 2014 there was 1,600 applications to switch nationality from the UK to the EU, and then it rose again and to 5,000 in 16 and 13,000 last year. So it seems people have had enough of austerity over there, and a permanent sales tax of 20%. Yes, I did say that correctly. A complete lack of sunshine and pleasant weather for over half the year has caused people to jump ship. A bit like the Roths and the Crown. Temple Bar, it seems the UK is turning into a sinking ship, just like the Olympic liner back in 1912, or no, 1906, I think. It certainly wasn't the Titanic anyway. People action. I'm going to have more of this later in the news. This time in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. Greenpeace and the First Nations are currently suspended from the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, blocking passage of oil tankers on the Burrard Inlet from Kinder Morgan in Burnaby. From what I saw of the pictures, they've hooked lines across both sides of the bridge and they're dangling over the water. And so obviously there's no traffic getting across that bridge. Nice to see people being active. In more pleasant political news, I think this is a pointer to take note of. Donald Trump is considering scaling down or completely withdrawing the US military from Germany, according to a report ahead of the NATO leaders meeting this week. And the US president has blasted allies for chipping in too little to the bloc's budget, and the decision to explore the option of pulling 35,000 US troops out of Germany. Why have we got that many there? I thought the war ended 70 years ago. Anyway, 35,000 troops may be pulled out came after Trump floated the idea during a meeting with White House and military aides, which was citing government officials who spoke on condition of anonymity. Now, the president has got repeatedly frustrated by the fact that Germany and other NATO allies don't pay their fair share into the budgets of the alliance. I would say all of them should cut NATO off. They're not protecting the EU, not one iota. It's Rothschild's private army, and Trump knows this. So Trump has stepped up his criticism of NATO ahead of the organisation's annual meeting scheduled for the 11th and 12th of July in Brussels. Germany has to spend more money, so does Spain and France. It's not fair what they've done to the United States, he told reporters on Friday aboard Air Force One. And earlier he had lashed out at Berlin on Twitter, saying the American army is defending Europe at great financial loss. Now, Trump's harshest stance has alerted European officials, with some speculating whether it might just be a negotiation tactic ahead of the key talks in Brussels, or whether he's going to actually pull all 35,000 US troops out of Germany. I hope it's the latter. Well, let the Europeans fend for themselves. Why is it always America that's the world police at our cost? Not only financially, but the cost of our sons and daughters. You've seen what happened the minute you ask for anything fair. Going on with the tariffs. They're all up in arms. Not good. Anyway, Germany pays just 1%, which is supposed to be 2% of GDP, and it pays that very, very slowly, while America paid 4% of a much larger GDP. And Trump went on and says, does anyone believe that makes any sense? We protect Europe, which is good, but at great financial loss, and then get unfairly clobbered on trade. Change is coming, he said. Wouldn't it be fun to see all the troops coming home from the EU? I would love to see all the roughly 800 to 900 bases that are dotted all over the world all knocked down and everyone brought home. We have enough defending to and cleaning up to do in this country without protecting everybody else. Well, a report has come out, all very quietly, but I suspect there will be some major concerns going on privately over this. The Pentagon has been exposed for quietly scrubbing troop numbers for Iraq, Afghanistan and Syria from the Defence Manpower Data Centre's website earlier this year. Now, they had repeatedly promised to improve transparency regarding troop statistics, and is under renewed scrutiny over its public information blackout. Unbelievable. David Wellner reported Tuesday that the public Pentagon website that had for more than a decade provided information about the number of US troops in war zones was still devoid of any numbers for Iraq, Afghanistan and Syria. When pressed to answer why these figures were no longer being made available to the public, the Pentagon spokesman told Wellner that it was to protect our forces. Really? We have to make sure that the American people know what their forces are doing, said Army Major Adrian Galloway, but we have to protect our forces as well. And part of that is making sure that we keep a handle on what information we release to the public in general. I don't see what the problem is of saying how many members we've got in those three countries. See, what happens is they don't tell you the numbers. This is likely why, because then they can make up however many numbers of soldiers they like when it comes to budgeting, and it's X amount per soldier. Works in all other industries. It's quite prevalent in the larger construction companies, where they inflate. They're on a per man contract and they inflate the numbers and just fill out paperwork for ghost workers. So I presume we're having issues with ghost soldiers as well, but it should be made available. I don't think really it's an issue, a live issue. You never know. Elizabeth Warren has joined the growing calls to reimagine and replace Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. She was speaking at an immigration rally in Boston on Saturday afternoon, and Warren told demonstrators that the current immigration situation is ugly and wrong. Yes, Elizabeth, it is wrong, but did you or any other Democrats, or Republicans for that matter, think of stopping it under Bush Jr.? Because that's when ICE was formed, March the 1st, 2003. Why is it a problem now? It was such an issue. Why didn't the Democrats get rid of it between 2008 and 2016 when the fake name man was in charge? So the Democrats had 8 years to remove something that they think is ugly and wrong. And if you didn't, why didn't you? Well, perhaps I forgot. The deep state and the mainstream media didn't tell you to do it back then, did they? You know, this is complete and utter hive-minded puppet. And if you can't think for yourself, and you're only getting script writers to speak for you, then please shut your pie hole. You're not doing anyone any favours. And take Maxine Waters and her runaway mouth with you. You're just vacuous hypocrites. 8 years to get rid of ICE with Obama. Now it's a problem. No, well, it was a problem during those 8 years. Anyway, she went on and said the following. Oh, how the cap fits. We need to rebuild our immigration system from top to bottom, starting by replacing ICE with something that reflects our morality and values. The same applies to politicians, Miss Warren. Where were your morals and values during the 8 years of Obama rules? These people are stupid. Beyond stupid. Things that make you go, First one. The co-founder and chairman of the giant Chinese conglomerate HNA Group has died in a fall in southern France this week while touring the Provence region. Wang Jian, who was 57, had climbed on a high parapet to take photographs in the picturesque village of Bonnier when he fell, according to the police anyway. Rescue services in the region were unable to revive him, and Mr. Wang had helped turn HNA into one of the world's biggest companies with assets in aviation, tourism and finance. It has major stakes in the Deutsche Bank, cough cough, hotel chain Hilton, and skyscrapers in London, and employs more than 400,000 people worldwide. A lot of people employed, and very few have even heard of it. Bit like Serco. And the company is currently in the process of selling down some of its international assets in a bid to reduce its domestic debt built up during a rapid expansion in recent years. Make of that what you will. Another thing that made me go, announced just before the show. Political commentator and former MSNBC host Ed Schultz has died at the age of 64. Mr. Schultz died of natural causes in Washington, D.C., announced by the Fargo, North Dakota station where Schultz got his start. They're all dying. Next portion is more arrests and exposures. An Alexandria man pleaded guilty this week to production of child pornography, according to court documents, over at least a 2-year period. Sky Dance McMahon, I presume is a native, conspired with an adult in Canada to produce over 1,000 sexually explicit images and videos of minor children in Canada. McMahon distributed these image and video files to other users and consumers of child pornography by providing access to the files on his cloud storage devices, and also by directly sending the files to other users. Now, in addition to the images and videos McMahon himself created, he also received and possessed thousands of images and videos of child pornography. And during the time he committed these offences, McMahon was a digital media administrator in the Foreign Services Institute of the U.S. Department of State in, go figure, Arlington. Another thing that makes you go, it's Virginia again. McMahon pled guilty to conspiring to produce child pornography and producing it, and faces a mandatory minimum of 15 years and a maximum penalty of 60 years in prison when he is sentenced on October the 12th. More arrests or exposures. Roughly 600 defendants across 58 federal districts, including 165 doctors, nurses and other licensed medical professionals, have been charged in what has been called the biggest healthcare fraud takedown in history. The alleged schemes involved more than $2 billion in false billings. I thought yeah, this is health, it's not the Pentagon, is it? Oh my. And almost a third of the defendants are charged for their roles in prescribing and distributing opioids and other dangerous narcotics, according to the Department of Justice. Additionally, in the last year, 2,700 individuals have been banned from participation in Medicare, Medicaid, and all other federal healthcare programs, including 587 providers excluded for conduct related to opioid diversion and abuse. And this is according to the Department of Health and Human Services. Every facet of life is currently being exposed. And this is why we have to have a little bit of patience with things. You've got people in government, people in politics, people in agencies, people right throughout the medical profession, all being exposed for fraud and other crimes. You would need to employ a vast quantity of people to go through it all. There's another one that's been found guilty and charged accordingly. Charles Schwab, the investor people, will have to pay a $2.8 million civil fine to settle Securities and Exchange Commission charges that it failed to file suspicious activity reports on questionable transactions by 37 investment advisors. Here we go again. This is the investment line. And the fine was disclosed in papers which was filed on Monday with the federal court in San Francisco, where Schwab is based, and requires a judge's approval. Schwab was accused of violating the Federal Bank Secrecy Act by failing to alert regulators to transactions of at least $5,000 that it suspected might be illegal or pose risks to the company or customers. More arrests, this time in Mexico, which has an effect here, as we all know, particularly in the southwest. This time it's 28 police officers in the western Mexican state of Michoacán or Oaxaca has been arrested on suspicion of involvement in the murder of a candidate for mayor in the municipality of Ocampo. And state authorities issued a statement on Sunday saying all members of Ocampo's municipal police department had been taken in for questioning by the police's internal affairs department. And the probe focused on potential violations of the police code of conduct. And without giving more details, local and national media said the officers were held on suspicion of complicity in the killing of Fernando Angeles Juarez, who was running for mayor of Ocampo. You see, even cops aren't getting away with it these days. Everyone's getting exposed. There's another one getting exposed, this time a charity, no surprise. A woman working for Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity in eastern India, state of Jharkhand, has been arrested for allegedly selling a 14-day-old baby. 2 other women employees from the centre have been detained and are being questioned about other possible cases. And the police took action after the state's Child Welfare Committee registered a complaint We have found out that some other babies have also been illegally sold from the centre, a police official told the BBC's Hindi News. We have obtained the names of the mothers of these babies and are investigating further. Terrible. The depths people will go to make money. Back to the media. Brian Ross, the veteran of ABC News, investigative correspondent who embarrassed the network late last year with an on-air report suggesting former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn had been told by President Donald Trump to make contact with Russian officials during the 2016 campaign. He is now leaving the network. Oops. Also going with him is Rhonda Schwartz, who served as the chief investigative producer for Ross's team. So the media are firing people as well. And the last big one on the firings, Malaysia's former Prime Minister Najib Razak has been charged in court on 4 counts of corruption. Often used word, it's not the correct thing, but I warned you all many months ago. You'll see a lot of court documents citing fraud and corruption when it really means there's a lot more to it that's not being made available to the public. Now, the former Prime Minister, it's quite a stunning fall from grace for the leader who was accused of extensive misappropriation of state funds, which he founded. And Mr. Najib pleaded not guilty to all accounts, each of which carries a potential prison sentence of up to 20 years. He was accused of abusing the position of Prime Minister for self-gratification, and he could also be handed a fine of up to $40 million. And the charges come amid a lengthy and ongoing criminal probe and relate to a suspicious transaction involving SRC International and a former unit of One Malaysia Development Board, and also Mr. Najib's personal account. Desperation tactics. We've all seen enough of that in the media. But Rhode Island decided to go one step further. And the state senate passed a bill this week that would keep candidates off the presidential ballot in their state if they don't release 5 years' worth of tax returns. You know the target, don't you? According to the Providence Journal, Senator Gail Golden, who sponsored the bill, Democrat, noted that every presidential candidate since Richard Nixon released their tax returns voluntarily until President Trump ran for office. And Trump has repeatedly claimed that he cannot release his tax returns because he's under audit, but the IRS said an audit does not prevent a candidate from releasing their personal tax information. Golden argued that tax returns provide essential information about candidates' conflicts of interest. And tax returns, she continued, are vital information a voter needs to know about a candidate at the ballot box. And the bill passed the Democrat-led majority Senate in Rhode Island by a vote of 34-3. It now moves on to Rhode Island's State House. It's funny they don't mention the Clinton Foundation conflicts of interest. What about their audit? Not only towards business practices, but actual humanity. If you're going to ask for personal information on one group, then it should be made available to all. These desperation tactics to try and stall the ongoing tsunami of information of exposing criminals is becoming quite laughable, to be quite honest, and hypocritical. They're accusing people of doing things that they've already done themselves. But if you're going to ask for Trump's tax return, let's find out what the Clinton Foundation has been and their conflicts of interest. A whole raft of them. Donations from abroad that are not allowed in a US Inc. election. No one said anything about that. There's another example of it. The resistance movement, as it's now called, against President Donald Trump is less than a year and a half old, and so are some of its newest members. And Walmart this week was promoting its new baby clothes, with the retail giant is selling Impeach 45 and Impeach Trump baby and adult apparel for opponents of the controversial 45th President of the United States. But Walmart's resistance appeal has met, for lack of a better term, resistance of its own from all accounts. That'll backfire as well. You know, where was Walmart impeach Obama for not being an American citizen, or impeach Obama for his role in Benghazi, or impeach Obama for having a dead man's social security number? I could go on all night with that. Of course, mass rallies were held across the country on Saturday that didn't bring about the so-called major riots that the Portal people all proffered up. And protesters called for an end to Donald Trump's zero-tolerance immigration policy that's left children separated from their parents at the border. And the largest of the rallies took place in the district, with thousands marching at Lafayette Square, directly across from the White House. The protest, organised under the umbrella group called Families Belong Together. They're just hypocrites. There was more than 600 marchers that drew, according to them, hundreds of thousands of people nationwide. It didn't appear to be hundreds of thousands from what I was seeing. From immigrant-friendly cities like Los Angeles and New York to conservative Appalachia and Wyoming. Although many participating in the marches are seasoned anti-Trump demonstrators, others are new to immigration activism, including parents who say they feel compelled to show up after heart-wrenching accounts of children being forcibly taken from their families as they cross the border illegally. Really? Tyler Hilton, a spokesman for the US Department of Homeland Security, welcomed interest in the immigration system and said only Congress has the power to change the law. We appreciate that these individuals have expressed an interest in and a concern with the critical issue of securing our nation's borders and enforcing our immigration laws. Zero tolerance. One wonders when our zero tolerance patience snaps with these hive-minded synths. Yeah. The media tells them this is awful. Children are being separated, which is for a very valid reason. But most of them are not being separated from parents either. Of course, the Portal people won't tell you that. But where was the media when this was happening under Obama? ICE was around then. Children were being separated then. Where has the media been when this show exposed NXIVM? Why did it take them another 8 months? Where has the media been when this show exposed that there's 900,000 American children going missing permanently every single year? Where are the media people then? And where are the synths? It's beyond shocking, really. The two problems we have here is the military and the media. One needs to grow a set and one needs to go altogether. I'll have a piece about the Portal people in the second hour. What has been launched, people have been hearing about it, called hashtag walk away, which is now become rather common. So I thought we'd have a song. Here's hashtag walk away.